Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, as the case may be. Thanks for joining us today for our presentation on defanging that JDE Archive and Purge project. So there's our monster running amok in our data center. And kudos to Alana on our team for putting that together for us. So my name is Mike Aaron. I will be the host, MC, and presenter for the session today. So good to have you with us. Terms of agenda, going to do some quick introductions for myself and my friendly cohort Russ on this. We will be starting off by talking about Purge and Archive project inhibitors from what we've seen in our experience with purging and archive projects and ways that you can combat them. We will spend a little bit of time talking about real-world data analysis and how that can help you out. Give you a bit of the 411 on Purge, a bit of an overview of it. Talk about some of the cool new stuff that have come out in the later releases of the project. And then we will be going through a bit of a live overview, not a full-on demo, but an overview. So from a housekeeping perspective, we do have everybody in listen-only mode, so we've taken the liberty of muting everybody. On your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a little chat box. Absolutely submit questions as you come up with them as you go along on that. We'll pause a couple of times to respond to those questions. We should be right on about 60 minutes for this. We are recording the session. So if you want a copy of a link to the recording or a copy of the presentation itself, be happy to share that with you for yourself or for other people in your organization. And as we always do when we do sessions like this, there is an exit survey, and there's a little bit of a twist with this one that I'll touch on at the end of the presentation. So background on ourselves. My name is Mike Aaron. I am a senior advisor here at Team Gain Solutions, Inc. Been doing JDE Edwards for over 30 years, been doing Archive and Purge for 19, same amount of time as I've been with Team Gain, and I've been happily working with the Purge-it solution for the last 9 years. And my cohort in crime, typically when we're doing these presentations, is Russ, and Russ is with us again. So want to say hi and wave there, Russ?
Hi, Mike, and hi everybody. This is Russell from the UK. I've been working with JDE Edwards for about 20 years, and the last 11 years with Click IT on the purging and archiving side of things. I'm here as Mike's wingman today, so I'll be managing any questions that come in, and also as me and Mike tend to do, have a bit of an interaction, a bit of a chat about some of the things that are coming up in the PowerPoint as well. So and the presentation. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool, thank you, sir. So, going to start off with a quick poll question. We're just kind of interested in knowing, have you ever archived your JDE Edwards data? So I've got a couple of choices there. You can launch the poll. If you can take a second and help us out. We do know that we've got a number of existing Purge customers on the webinar today, so interesting to see. But yeah, anybody else, let us know. It's fun for us to do these questions because we know what we want to talk about, but it also gives us a good feel for what the expectations and experience of the audience is as we're going through. It helps us set the tone for how we present some of the rest of the material as we're going through. So getting up there, probably a little over, just under 70%. So last couple of people, if you can, help us out. That would be great. Russ, I thought you said you were going to offer like a free trip to Paris or something for people that vote on the polls in the presentation. Did you change your mind on that, or?
Oh yeah, that was actually just for me.
Okay.
Do you know, I went to, I was talking to somebody else the other day. I went to Paris and we did some training at one of our Parisian clients, and it was Fauchon, that's the luxury chocolatiers. So guess who brought back a very large box of luxury chocolates?
They haven't shown up for us yet, so I guess they're in the mail, huh?
Yeah.
Idiot. Okay, so just over half have never archived, a little under 10% not yet, but are planning to, and about just over a quarter are purging and archiving and have used Purged-it. So cool. So basically close to 2/3 have not, and we have about 10% as well that are using another tool. So cool. Alrighty. So just quick check. Can you see the Archive and Purge benefit screen again?
Yep.
Excellent, thanks. So quickly, why would you want to archive and purge? This really talks to, if you're trying to get this justified, if you're trying to get this going, you need to know what you can expect or what you should be able to expect for the benefits from it. So backup times, overnight jobs, we have absolutely had customers that have inquired with us because things like the sales order process overnight or backups, we're running out of time. As businesses get more 24/7 as well, it becomes more and more of an issue. Data refreshes and disk space. I mean, disk is cheap, but the time that you need to refresh, if you're going into an upgrade or something and you're going to be refreshing your production into test on a regular basis, if you have a QA, if you have a train and other environments, the more you have, the more it takes up. When you're heading into an upgrade as well, the time that's going to be required for it and the risk because of old, dead, dirty, cloggy data can impact things. Batch run times. So JD Edwards is a lot of its stuff is done interactively, but an awful lot of stuff is done in batch or done interactively in batch behind. It takes up more time. The data integrity, the part of the tie-on for that is if you're not using something that's maintaining the integrity within JD Edwards, you end up with crap in your tables, and that's just not fun. It can really put a damper on the user experience. As we've gone through with pretty much every single client, we uncover unexpected process benefits. And by that, I mean, as we're going through and looking at what's going to be purged in archive and looking at the audit data that comes out from the review, it points out process issues. So I'm an accountant by background, a little bit of information here. If you can save 10 minutes a day of staff, which really isn't an awful lot of staff time, and you have 50 staff, that's the equivalent of a full-time equivalent of work time that you're saving. So what would you normally purge and when? JD Edwards is a transactional system. So we are going after, as a default, the heavy hitters, the main transactional tables. Worked recently with a client that had coming up on 800 million records in their 9/11. So we've seen some pretty big tables. We also, oftentimes customers forget that they've got tag files or add-on systems. So much like Purge-it is an add-on system for JD Edwards, there are other ones that generate transactions, and customers often, our numbers show north of 85%, excuse me, have F55 to F59 tag tables. So that's what you want to go after as well, because they're usually related to the transactions. We get asked about master data. Yeah, you absolutely can. You need to exercise a little bit more care with them. We've cleaned out address book, we've cleaned out vendor master, we've cleaned out chart of accounts and business units and item master. You can do it, just need to be a bit careful. Dead and dirty data. It's amazing how much is out there that's just companies have carved off divisions, shut down geographies, changed lines of business, sold off part of the company, but the data is still out there and really doesn't need to be. In terms of timing, most current that we've seen with customers, or the most common, is 2 years plus current, typically up to 7 years, which is the legislative limit. Legislative might be a bit different and might be different based upon the industry you're in as well. There's also the legal exposure. If you have the data and you're involved in a lawsuit, you have to actually show up with the data. So, and that can mean sending staff off to it. Not to mention the fact that if you need to present it and it's not in your favor, that's a risk that you're going to run into. Users always keep wanting to save pretty much every transaction that's out there for fear. We'll go through, as we're continuing on, ways that you can show them that that doesn't have to be an issue. You also, if you want to do a proper job of this, you want this to be an ongoing process. This should not be a point in time fire drill and then wait another 5 or 6 years and want to do it again. If you do it on a regular basis with some of the set and forget features that we've got, it really simplifies things. So one last poll question before we get into the challenges. And with this one, we're interested in what your challenges are. So what scary factors are the ones that have kept you away from doing archive projects in the past. So you can select as many as you want for this one. As with the other ones, keep this open for a little bit. This is always intriguing. You know, is it budget? Is it the precursor to cost uncertainty? Just never seems to trickle up as a priority. Not sure how to get started or how to proceed, or concerns about resourcing and time. If you're an existing customer and are already archiving and purging or using another tool, if you want this to be what was stopping you before you got the solution, that's fine. So coming along, yeah, over 50% now. So that's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Give it a bit more. Okay, we're just at about 80%. So cool. Close enough. Thanks, everybody. So let's close that down. So highest was just not a high priority in general so far. We see that a lot. Next is just over 35% uncertainty how to proceed, and then worried about resourcing and time. The lowest is unable to get budget approval, which is a bit unusual. We usually see that a bit higher up. So anyway, interesting. Okay, so not a high priority, and uncertainty how to get started, and resourcing are the big ones. So perfect. Kind of ties in with what we're going to cover off next. So thanks. So what's stopping you? The short on this, when we've worked with customers in the past, they've looked at it from the perspective of trying to figure out what they've got. So SQL statements, maybe going in and doing some direct updating, maybe looking at trying to write something themselves, using more of a generic tool to get it done. That adds to the angst and the complication, because if it's not purpose-built for JD Edwards, if it doesn't maintain the referential integrity, it's a daunting process. So what we think of with Purge-it is it's a more specific surgical solution, and it's JD Edwards specific. It's Oracle validated, it does all the referential integrity. As you'll see, it's got processing options and data selection. Big thing from the users is rollback capability. So if you are doing an archive and you think, nah, that wasn't quite what we wanted, you've got an undo button. And you've actually got an undo button at a couple of levels. So cool. The other part is using the wrong process or not understanding the process or what the process could be. So, skip down to the questions we get. And what we hear is, how are we going to do this? What tables should we be looking at? What tables can we get to? How do we keep things in sync between purchasing and inventory and accounts payable and general ledger? Well, how much data? How much are we going to be able to get rid of? How are we going to access it? The users want to make sure they can get to the data even after we've carved it out. So how are we going to do it? What about all our custom apps and files? Oh, and, it's going to be a project. So what are we going to have for lunch during the project? Rather than having something that you're trying to jury rig and put together and scratching your head about, go with something that will allow you to get it done simply. This whole idea, archiving JD Edwards data, for us, it's old hat. We've been there, we've done that, we got the t-shirt. The process that we have, an example of it on the right-hand side, this is literally what I go through when I'm working with clients or prospects, is where do you want to get involved? If you want to have a higher level of involvement or a lower level, I'll tell you what that amounts to. And I'll tell you what it amounts to by each step within the project. So we use this to help, along with the questionnaires, the business drive the decisions they need to make. Again, we got the rollback capability. We can do things differently for sales versus GL versus inventory versus custom. We got a template and a discussion document for retention policy. So we can guide you through this. The idea of a process is one that should be making things simpler for you and helping you out. And that's what we do with it. Justifying the spend or making it a priority. We're not sure what the cost of who really needs to purge an archive. Maybe we'll do it next year. And I've had discussions where next year never really kind of comes. Think like a business person or like the business on this. There's risks, but there's also rewards. There's legal implications, and there are savings that you can gain by going through and going ahead with this. One of my favorite comments from an existing customer is, fear of the unknown and uncertainty kept us from archiving for so long and getting the benefits. We should have done this sooner. If you're thinking about putting it off, don't. It doesn't have to be painful. So the data analysis we do shows you where your reductions are going to come from. You will get benefits. Because it's a batch-driven system, the performance is going to increase. And all the spin-offs, if you have a disaster recovery plan and you need to declare and recover from, you got a pile of data, you're just making it more difficult for yourself. This is JD Edwards. It's very familiar. You want to start off small, make it easier, just do maybe GL and accounts payable. Cool, let's do that. If you're concerned about the CapEx side, we do have Archive as a service as an option if that's needed or if that would be beneficial. And you're going to get rid of the legal risk of having the excess data that's out there. So every client is a bit different as to what will work for them, but we're very adept at working with customers, finding out where the pain points are and pointing out where the benefits can be and how to help to justify it. So let us help you. The main point with all of this is it doesn't have to be a ball of snakes, nor should it be. And this is my picture at the beginning is with my Indiana Jones kind of hat on. I hate snakes, just like Indiana Jones. So it doesn't have to be a ball of snakes, nor should it be. We simplify it for you. So kind of hope that helps a little bit. I mentioned about the data analysis. We send a document out that basically says, hey, depending upon what database you're using, here's how to get the information. It'll take you a couple of minutes to get it to us. Customers on the call or on the session are familiar with this. We turn the information back. It's a bit of an eye chart, but it shows you green. That's what we're going to touch on automatically. Blue are things like manual backups that you can get rid of. Yellow are things that you probably should stay away from, or can custom stuff. We can do it, and red is stay away from. Their master tables. The main point with this that we've seen is a high percentage of what you got can be cleared out. So we show you what can be handled by custom, what can be handled by standard, what can be handled by, hey, you've got 700 gigabytes of backup tables, F0911_Mike, F4311_ Russ_2019-1004. There's a lot that can be saved. So we can help you surgically decide. We also use this on our side to determine what to recommend for you. Maybe you don't need all of the modules to license from Purge-it. So, and again, this is real simple. It's real unthreatening. Takes you 5 minutes. It takes us an hour or two to do the analysis and get back to you, but it can really help out. Quick overview from a high-level side technical for Purge-it. It installs as an ASU. So just like any other product adding in there. Any platform database that JD Edwards works with, we work with because we install within JD Edwards. Same thing with any tools release that's out there. All of the standards within JD Edwards are OCM, database, data sources, object management, workbench, security menus. We are part of the JD Edwards system. So we function in and with it just like anything else. As you'll see, processing options, data selections, UDCs, the whole 9 yards. We have had Purge-it out there since World Days and from XE version 8, One World / Enterprise 1, right to the current 9.2 release. We are Oracle validated integration, so it's had to be validated at every single release. From a technical perspective, as new tables or new columns are added in, or case in point, when the company number went from 3 to 5 digits, we take that into account within the Purge-it product, and it needs to pass the validation. So from a functional side, as the functionality within JD Edwards, like for RMA, is added in there, we pick that up in the new releases as well. Because we're an Oracle validated solution, we have our own system codes, that's YK5 and YK6. and the product was developed with the normal development standards. So as you will see, the look, feel, and actions of it is just like JD Edwards. Sorry, just having a slurp of coffee here. So what do you get rid of? Well, from system inception, and this has been as far back as, geez, on my side, Russ, 28 years is the largest I've seen. I'm not sure if you've seen that large as well, but normally customers will, not quite that much.
Not quite.
Yeah, 20 plus.
You've got the gold medal on that one.
Yeehaw. Well, our customer does actually, but
yeah.
When we're working with clients, we normally will look at this and say, so there's the legal retention date that you have to deal with, and that will typically be something like 7 years back. Then beyond that is what you're going to get rid of, what you're going to put into your archive, or possibly just delete. From 7 years to current is typically what's going to be in your archive. As you go forward from year to year, you will normally drop a year off, either into cold archive, like off system, or just get rid of it, and maintain your, call it, full 7 years between archive and production. So in this case, the blue, the middle arrow is going to represent what you have in your archive. So if you're doing current +2 and you're keeping 7 years total, you'll have a rolling 4 years there. The production, for your cutoff date, anything before that is what's going into archive. Anything more current than that stays in production up to the current date. We'll see as well that there's some flexibility that you can have in there. We think of it as well down at the bottom. What you keep in production is what you need for operational purposes. Sorry, just had a quick cough there. And what you have beyond that, in conjunction with what you've got in operational, is what you require for legal purposes. So this can change by module, and this can change by client, depending upon your requirements. If you need to do track and trace, your archive could carry much farther than the 7 years, but that might be just for sales order information. So
we've got just a quick comment on the side there. We've got a customer just coming on board at the moment. They've got a 4 terabyte production database in an XE system. They've got 17 years of data there, and they're wanting to keep the cutoff date, so they only want to keep 2 years plus current in production. So that's going to be a significant saving for them. I think they've got about 700 million GL records.
Wow.
So, and it's only 4 terabytes because XE is non-Unicode. Otherwise, it would be an 8 terabyte database.
Right. Yeah, you double that. Yep. Wow. So a good reason as well to get rid of it before they go to 9.2, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's why they're doing it.
Wow. So there are 8 standard modules within Purge-it. There's the work orders, purchase order, sales order, inventory, payables, receivables, payroll, HR, GL, and we also have the custom module. The way that we show the flow here is the way data typically goes into JD Edwards and typically how we take it out. So the numbers within the bracket, so the 30 under work orders and 16 under purchase order, those are the standard tables within that module that we touch and remove data from a transactional perspective. So you can see some of them, like inventory, there's only 1. There's only 2 for the GL, both related to the 911. So when we are doing our archives and purges, we normally start from the outside, so from the top of the tail. Ooh, that sounds like a snake. Shiver, to work orders. So that will then go into purchase orders and then into sales orders. We'll sometimes flip that to sales and then purchase orders, depending upon the priority. But those then allows us to get to inventory, and then we can go up the chain to payables as a corollary to purchase orders and receivables as a corollary to sales orders. And then to the payroll HR transaction, finally finishing up in GL. So that's the normal process. We can do it out of sequence as well if we desire. And the custom module, as we'll see, is kind of the Swiss Army knife for what we're going to do. So, data integrity. This is one of the hallmarks for why you want a purpose-built tool. If we look at it from a purchase order perspective, we got transactions in the 4301, 4311, historically in the 43191. We got 43121. We also have advanced pricing information. We got shipment information, or receipts information, et cetera, et cetera. We will, the green, what we show as, or what I'm showing is the integrity guardrails, is what we've hard-coded into the programs to make sure that if you're going to go through and clear things out, you're doing it with the proper dates, with the proper validations at the record level and at the document level. We also provide soft, or what works for your data, what works best on your side, and that's at the document and also the modular level. That involves things like, do you want to account for RMA documents? Do you want to account for, if it's a purchase order, do you want to look at related purchase orders? And if you're looking at related purchase orders, you also want to look at related orders for those related orders and check the dates all around before you get rid of anything. So the data integrity is the foundation of the system. The soft validations also typically are the ones that will say, do you want to take a look at sales, accounts payable, work orders, and for the related records there, and not get rid of or archive a document on the purchase order side if it's got outstanding records still on the payable side. So the purchase order might be closed, but I might still have an open payment request on the AP side, so keep the whole chain intact. So there's an awful lot of detail. There's a whack of checks that we do hard and soft on your behalf. This is what keeps you from getting into trouble. This is what keeps you on the road with it. This is what keeps your integrities from falling apart.
And because we...
Go ahead, Russ. Yep.
Because we process the big data selection and then we discount the things that fail those validations, we've then got that information to hand in our audit screens to enable you to then go off and fix those problems and maybe fix the underlying business process issue that has caused those problems in the data in the first place.
Yeah, that's always interesting, isn't it? Because we see process issues as we're going through. It's a direct result of the analysis that we do when we're looking at the audit information. It so often points that out. With the GL and also with inventory, we have not only the transactional information to deal with, but we've also got the summary file. So, the 902, obviously, from the GL side. As we are going through and doing the archiving of transactions, we need to maintain that integrity. So that's part of what we do. As we're going through and updating, so if we're taking records out of the 911, we are donating their balances to a balance record that we are creating and maintaining in the 911. So that if you do a repost, if you rebuild your 902 from your 911, same thing on the inventory side, everything is in sync. When we do reversals, if we say, ooh, shoot, we need to back out the last run that we did, we can reverse the process. And part of the reason we can do that, as Russ alluded to, is we have all of the audit data in addition to the exception data that allows us to know that what it is that we need to affect. So we keep all of this in sync for you. The process is a very JDE Edwards familiar one. We start out with the input side. So there's the processing options and data selections for the UBEs for each of the purges. There's some one-off setup data that you do to configure the system. The process itself is a single batch that does the selection, the validation, the purging, the archiving, the summarization for inventory and for general ledger, and creation of the audit and exception data. That gives rise to the output, which is the summary PDF, shows you what happened. the audit data, which is very unique and very helpful, and the archive data. So the audit data, when things go well, who cares? The reality is, rarely does it go well. There's the stuff that somebody went in and sequeled out. There's the power failure that ended things inappropriately and batches were out of sync. Somebody went in and somehow managed to delete some batch headers. There's the Sally incident that no one talks about anymore. Stuff ends up in the tables. The audit data shows you where the problems are and gives you the ability to go in, find it, and fix it. And we point you right to the document in error.
These are
Talking to you.
Scary Halloween things, aren't they, Mike?
Absolutely. Oh, I thought you were going to do the sound effects for us. There we go.
I will on the next slide.
And that's actually a picture that we took of down at the bottom of Russ receiving a nasty phone. We canceled your flight. Anyway, when we're talking with users as well, they get scared. So the old, where's my old data scare, worry, nervousness. We give you three options on this. As we're archiving the transactions, as we're moving them out, we can take them from the business data, showing on the left-hand side, and we can put it into archive data for prod. So we're going from the 911 to the 911. We're going from your prod 920 to your archive for your data. You go into it with the same, in this case, P09210 inquiry screen. So you sign out of your production, you sign into your archive environment, and the data is there. So that's option number one. We also have option number two. So, where's my old data scare prevention number two? This is unique within Purge-it, by the way. Because it's system reserved, we have our own table. So the equivalent of the FO911 is the FYK 57900. So you can actually archive that into the same production database. So it's still in JPD 920. We build it with fewer indexes, so it's going to take up less space. It's not a new environment, and there's no user licenses that we're making use of to create that as well. So it's staying in production. People can get to the inquiries on this archive data, and this is across all of the modules then, by using our PYK 57900 read-only inquiry screen. And the same thing for payables and receivables and purchasing, etc. There are some limitations as to when you can or cannot use this. Be happy to talk about them, but it is another option. We also often get asked by customers, well, we'd like to be able to do that, but we have a need sometimes for reporting or for other purposes to be able to get to both our 911 and our archive data. So you can do a union or database view for the FO911 that will actually combine the information from prod and also from the FYK table and pull it together so that you can access it in one shot. Anything you want to add on that part, Russ?
No, it's not in great detail. No, I mean that's via a database view, which is a standard functionality in the database. It's capable on, it's an ANSI standard SQL thing, so you can do it on AS400, SQL Server, Oracle database. There's another way that you can use database views as well. So a sort of combination of the previous two options, where you can where you've got a business intelligence tool that you want to keep the data in the FO911 type format, but you can then use a database view to rename that to the FYK table, and therefore you get the best of both worlds. So the BI solution the table directly, and the end users can access the archive data from within production via those read-only PYK archive applications.
Got you. So a little, as you call it, jiggery pokery on it.
That's the one.
Cool. Okay. Wanted to touch briefly on the Purge custom module for all your hidden data monsters. So people have this. You've got an F55 4211, an F59 4311. You've got an add-on system for energy purposes or for whatever. You can create schedules. Schedules will access the tables. You can do your data selection. You can do the joins between the tables and specify the criteria and the join data selection. So really, it's like a Swiss Army knife for being able to get at any other table. If the table is visible within JD Edwards, you can get to it and you can archive the data. Now, that's going to come to a couple of my favorite things in some of the new features. So version 4.3.0 came out June of this past year. I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be going in and accessing pretty much everything via the new session dashboard, which is a power form that gives you access to most of the functionality. Certainly from an analysis, review, and working with the runs that you've got, this is how you will get it now. We also have, and I will show this and I'll talk to it a bit more, but we've added in quick tags. So historically, when you've wanted to archive custom data, you set up your schedules and all, you did your archive, so case in point, the FO911, then you would go in and do your custom archive, and it would in essence look for the non-existence of the transactions in the 911, use that as the trigger to say the transaction itself at which I'm tied to has been archived. Therefore, I in my tag table am eligible for archive. The quick tags we've set up to allow you to establish the tables that should tie into the normal archive that you do and archive them as part of this main standard run. So people that are familiar with Purging will get that this allows you to do it all in one shot, basically. There are some rules around that with the key fields so that it can tie in, but this should simplify even more so the process for you. One of the other nice things that's in there is notification emails. So you can actually get notified when the jobs start, when the job's completed, etc. Version 4.2.8 and 4.2.9, which went to GA November 2017, one of the big things in there was extended options for job cross-validation or job cost validation across all of the modules that we have. So at the highest level, that's based upon the status. So is it an open or a closed job? Could be based upon if there's any transactions that are out there, or at the most, the tightest level, don't touch if there's a job, if it's tied to a job. There's also single transaction reversal. So talk about granularity with wanting to be able to hit the undo button. That could be for an entire run, or it can be down to the transactional level. Date offsets were also added to inventory as the last module, I believe. It was added in there in version 4.2.0 for pretty much all of the others. So if you're not even on 4.2.0, that's a huge set and forget feature that can help out. 4.2.7, which went to GA January of 2017, is when the first group of dashboards, which is session and environment, were added in there. And there's a bunch of performance improvements in there, particularly around sales order, purchasing, and receivables. And prior to that, there was audit deletion programs for each of the individual modules. We came up with one kind of Swiss Army knife version of it for all of the modules. So all of the other ones were deprecated. So I'm about to jump into the product overview. So Russ, I'm just going to pause my screen here and get switched over. In the meantime, do you want to check and see if there's any questions for us there?
Yeah, we had one question come in, and for anyone else, if you've got any other questions, feel free to jump, put them in the questions box. The one that came in was from Mike. Do you cover world software, and also how about world software the file reorganization? So yes, we've got a world product. Not a problem on that, all the way up to A94, and that was actually the first Purge-it product, so that's been there for 18 years or something like that. It follows very similar kind of process as you'll see in the E1 product today. And in terms of reorganization, that's an AS400 specific task because it's got such a good CL command line option for it. Then we didn't replicate anything like that within Purge-it, but you just use the standard RGZ PFM, and from V5R3 and above, you can actually do that whilst active. So whilst people are still on the system using the files, you can do the main reorganization of the records, and then you just need a very small exclusive lock at the end, which you do out of hours to then truncate the space and regain that space back from the DASD.
Yeah, so that's the chop and consolidate off hours, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That's all the questions?
Yeah, there's only one. Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. So into JD Edwards then. So this is our demo system for Purging. And this is actually this is the quick hosted one. So it's 9.2. So I'm going to get into, I've got a lot of the stuff set up in my favorites. So I'm just going to go in, again, this is it's JD Edwards. So I'm going to go into the enhanced session dashboard to start off with. Let me slide close to my favorites there. And when I mentioned about some of the new capabilities and the new dashboard, this is what I'm talking about. So there's a bit more in here. I'll go into each of the areas, but I'm going to start off just by looking here. So this is the session runs that have happened. On the left-hand side, I've got my icons to be able to work for any given session run here. So I can, with that, delete all of the audit data and delete the exception data. So this is pointing out, and I'll go in and look at for one of the runs, but this allows you to get rid of, because it takes up obviously a fair amount of, or it builds up space as you're building up the referential stuff, it gives you options to be able to clear it out. I can also go in, if the job is running, I can cancel it. When I cancel, what Purge-it does is it is aware of the boundaries for the transaction, for the document, for the batch, and will roll back to an appropriate level depending upon the module. So you will not, if you cancel it, end up with partial transactions out there, part archived, part not. It'll do the full document sweep and then back. I can also reprint the report from it. I can go in and do the reversal of an archive run in proof mode. I can do it in final mode. I can actually delete the session if I'm totally done with it. And I can go in and reset the status. And there's specific reasons why you might want to do that. On the right-hand side, I've got the options to look at the audit data, look at the analysis for it, and to look at the log information. Just to show you that this is really just JD Edwards, I'm going to use my query by example line. I'm going to look for the inventory ones. And let's go in and look at this one here. So I'm going to go in, and first of all, I'm going to look at my audit data. So when I'm doing a run, Purge-it keeps track of what's happened. By audit, we mean audit within Purge-it. So everything that has happened for all of the transactions that it's worked with are being tracked in the audit tables. So, and again, I'm just going to go in here and say, let me just find my inventory adjustment ones. So I can see that this individual document for this company with this document type was reversed. And I can drill down from there into even more details. But this is the granularity that we've got for what we're tracking within Purge-it. So we can have exceptions, and exceptions are the errors that we encounter. For this run, we've got 6 different ones. There could be up to, I think, this is inventory, for probably about 17 different errors or exceptions that we could run into. 26 of the records we couldn't do anything with because we didn't actually have an item master for it. Kind of weird, but hey, this is the real world of data that we live with. We have upward validation of sales order turned on. So 296 of the records that we would normally have archived did not go through because the sales order existed or existed and was open, depending upon the criteria that we set up in our processing options. Therefore, it couldn't get done. From there, here, I could also go down and look at the individual transactions. So the 296, what are those? And from that, be able to see what were my issues. When Russ and I have talked about pointing out errors in the process, this is the sort of stuff where it comes through. So not necessarily upward validation, but if you're missing an item master, if you're missing an account master, if you've got missing batch header records for receivables or payables, you got some funky stuff going on in your data. So this will help you to find and fix that, and will often point out errors in your process. You won't know that until you go through that. I can also then look at my analysis. So for this run, I can see, here's my main 4111. I purged 4,176 records. I have this set to also purge with the quick tags related tables, so my 4111 and my 4111T. So those are at 55s. It created or cleared out 4,176 of those as well. And from there, I can get into the actual archive inquiry for the data, much like I could from the menu. So these two screens have shown me being able to get to the details of what's been archived. I could get into the inquiries. I've seen what's gone bump in the night for it. I could also do my reversals as I've seen. Now let me come down here though to one of the other forms or parts of the form. This is the session information. So for my run status, I can see 8,120 records selected, processed, none are remaining. Here's when it started, the date and time. Here's when it ended, date and time. It bypassed 3,479. There are 465 exceptions. I had purged 4176. I've reversed them since then. My analysis directly shows me the tables. Oh, and over here on the right-hand side, here's the counts for each of them. And I'm looking right now at how many were archived. I can flip it over and look at how many remain in production instead. There's my exception analysis. I can also, for any given one of them, showing me, this is from the data dictionary, what the actual cause was. So what does it mean when the upward validation sales order exists, kept a record from being processed? What's the log look like? Well, it was started and completed, and then the reversal was started and completed. Because this is demo data, yeah, we've done that a few times. But you get the point here. The information is all there. What email notifications were done, and from a performance perspective, what was the module size before? What was it after? What was your percentage reduction from this one run? How long did it take to run? And what was the effectiveness of it? I could also over here, if I looked at the pie chart, if I click on any one of those, that's going to drill me down into, in this case, the audit data to show the errors, because this is the exceptions. So, and that's a screen that we've been looking at before. I'm going to roll over a bit. The same sort of thing for the execution for this run. I can see my audit details again, my processing options, if there was any specific data selection or sequencing, form interconnect, and a specific SQL statement. So I've got a summary here in one shot. The advantage of the session dashboard over what had been there before, it into one spot, the actions, the review, and the analysis that you would normally have to go to a number of different spots to obtain. So next one I want to take a look at, this might be new for some people depending upon the version that you're at, but the environment dashboard. No, I don't need to refresh my data. Thank you very much. People, and I think pretty sure there's one on here that's familiar with our managed solution, the new one, but it's kind of a mini version of that. The environment dashboard, though, lets you see, in my case, I've set it up for my JDE 920 is my production, and this is my archive. So I can see by database size what I've got in prod versus ARC, or I can see by the number of records. Obviously, a bit of a substantial difference there. That's also, I can look at this split by module. And over here, if I'm looking at it by individual module, this is showing me the graphical side of it. Down here, I've got my module representation. So for receivables, there's the tables. There's a number of records in my production. There's a number of records in archive. There are jobs that we have that run underneath the covers that update this information for us. But I can also go in, for example, and see for purchasing. I last ran my archive on May 15th of this year. So this is handy information that we do not see on the enhanced session dashboard. And I can see the number of records and how many are in my archive, and then the same thing by table over there. So, and a database growth trend that I can look at for the last period of time. This is dependent upon running the jobs to capture the information. So, but just again, a bit of an overview for it. The last thing two things I want to get into, I'm going to get into the actual purchase order purge. So this is a batch application. I'm going to go into my shipped batch version, and I'm going to go and take a look at the processing options just to walk through a little bit here, get a bit of an understanding. Whenever I run these, I can run them in proof mode or update mode. The process we go through in an overall purge project is to run in proof mode in prototype, and then update mode in prototype, and then proof mode if desired, or update mode in production. Because this is purchasing, we can specify whether we want to check or validate for blank next statuses or just to go on what is a normal final status. We want to check for all exceptions, or if it's the first time we encounter an exception, an error, just stop there, report that, and carry on. So a quicker run through. And there's some validations for transfer orders here. My selections, this is where I can specify my cutoff date. Now I can do a cutoff date, or this is the date offsets. The date offsets let us set up a date that could be variable, and therefore allow us to set the archive so that it can be put on something like the scheduler. If I look at an example like my 3 fiscal years, that is 2 years plus current. It shows us here what date it would be interpreted as of today. So this is saying I'm going to have my current year, and that's going to stay the same until the end of this year. And I'm going to go back 2 years. I've got a 30 days I've set up. I've got a rolling 3 years, and you notice that will roll back to literally October 24th, 3 years ago. I've got 3 months, 3 fiscal months ago, etc. I can also set up my own. So again, the advantage here is rather than giving it a hard date, I can set this up as a rolling 3 months or a rolling 12 months or a rolling number of fiscal years. Set this up on the scheduler once I'm comfortable, once I've gone through my first couple, and just literally do, as we say, set and forget. Here's some of the soft validations. So do I want to validate against directly related purchase orders, directly related and their related orders, or not perform checks against any other orders? So in this example, it could be I've got an order that came from a blanket order or requisition. How far down the chain do I want to go? I've got similar checks that I can do against payables, against RMA, work orders, sales orders, and job costs. So the idea here is to give you the flexibility to the validations in other areas that make sense for you. And in some cases, it could be I will turn it off to get rid of certain information, and I'll turn it on for others. It could just be different versions or different runs. And here's where I can assign the quick tag to be used for that process. So Yeah, a couple of minutes to the end. So that's literally just a quick overview. The whole idea here was not to do a demo like we would typically do of running through and running it in proof, seeing the results, watching it, doing inquiries, and then doing a reversal and seeing it's put all the data back. But to give you a flavor for one, it's like JDE Edwards, two, it's flexible, and three, way to get in, review, manage, control, and do updates for your runs for Purge-it. So I'm going to pause here again, Russ, see if there's any questions, and we can switch back over to the tail end.
Mike, you are nailing it because there are no questions.
Ooh,
Everybody is totally on board with everything you're saying.
Excellent. All right, either that or, never mind. So let me just switch this over and we'll just get into the home stretch here. So as Russ had mentioned, oops, oh, there we go.
When you were saying 1, 2, 3 just before, Mike, could you, if you can remember, can you repeat number 3 because the sound broke up slightly when you were there before?
Which 3 were you talking about?
Oh, you were giving 3 reasons for something. I can't remember.
Okay, I can't remember either. So, so there you go.
That's right.
All righty. So let's get back to the. Can you see my screen now, Russ?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So components and steps. Purge-it. Well, we've got the software, which is obviously a precursor for it. So you do need to have that. There's annual maintenance. So showing 430 today. If you're current on maintenance, 430 is available for you. All of the stuff that I showed for cool new features, that's part of what's been added into the product over the last 3 releases. The last, probably what, 3 years, I guess. So that's all available to you. When we're working with a new customer, typically there's the installation, the tech configuration, and the training. That's normally what we would do for them at a minimum. If they're very conversant, they could probably do the installation, get our help from the tech config. And archiving in the prototype environment, typically something we would help with. Archiving in production, it depends. The main point with this is, depending upon the you have available, what you want to be able to do on your time crunch, you can perform more of this or less of it. We do not dictate to you what the project should look like. We will tell you what the project should be and what the steps are and how to go about it intelligently and for success, but we work with you to balance off the investment, your schedule, and your time so that it's successful. We did a survey a little while back. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things in there. A little under 25% of the people got Purge-it to replace another product that's out there. And it's kind of the corollary to the second point, where people that bought Purge-it did it to avoid having to learn a third-party product. Because this is JDE Edwards, it's a lot simpler for the people working with it, implementing it, and also for the business working with it. From a perspective of what do existing customers do, 85% of them said they do annual or as required, and in some cases the as required is weekly for a manufacturing data for I think it's a 7-site manufacturing organization. 95% said they do a purge as part of an upgrade, and 85% said before. Part of the reason in particular for mentioning the last two is people always ask us, how often should we? And we're a lot of the times talking to people because an upgrade will beget the interest in purging. Customers are doing this before for a lot of good reasons that we touched on as well here. So wanted to just touch on as well. I mentioned about the dashboards and how it's a bit of a precursor to some extended functionality and manage it. just let you know, manage it. It's a subscription service, $4,000 a year. That's it.
Oh, sounds like Mike's gone permanently this time. But just to pick up from where he was leaving off, are you there again, Mike?
Yeah, I am. Did I disappear?
You disappeared. Yeah, we heard it was 4,000 a year.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So full visibility into environments, tables, modules, databases, and data sources. So that's on the manage it side. So really cool for me able to give you insight into what's going on in JD Edwards. It can give you alerts when you're exceeding thresholds, and that can be on the table and environment size for both size and records. Test It gives you the ability to have a rules-based automatic creation of a test environment. So there's setup involved with it, but I can really simplify it for you and make it easier. And the data masking allows you to do table level data masking. So nice new solution available this year. We have a recorded webinar on that if you're interested as well. So ISP3 and Team Kane, Platinum Partner, we do JD Edwards. Yeah, lock, stock, and barrel. A lot of work on upgrades and implementations, migrations, and a bunch of added products. Highlight, of course, being Purge-it. So what else can we do for you? My recommendation would be, let us do the table analysis. If you are on the fence or you're thinking, I don't know, will this be helpful for us? We can send you our document that says this is how to get the information for us. If you need us to sign an NDA, that's fine. We'll get it. We'll turn it around within a couple of days typically. And it'll show you where your data is. With a couple of questions from you, we'll also be able to explain to you where your benefits and savings can come from. You'll be surprised at what you see. This obviously wasn't a demo of the product. If this seems intriguing, like it might be helpful, be thrilled to do a full-on product demo and answer your personal detailed questions. We've got a number of case studies that we can share with you. You want to talk in general about the or specifics about a project. What does it entail? Who do we need from your side? Hey, what about these questions here and on that before doing a demo? Absolutely. And sadly, this isn't a free solution. And sadly, people keep asking us how much it's going to cost. That's cool. We'll answer a few questions, and actually, honestly, the table analysis is a great starting point for it. We can give you an investment quote. I can turn that around pretty quickly. Tell you the modules you need, tell you what the investment in the software would be, what the maintenance would be, and some rough cuts or different levels for what the service level could be to make sense for you. So happy to do that. So that's it, folks. We'll see if I'll see if my illustrious colleague, Mr. Russell, has anything else. I mentioned about the survey. As you exit, we normally ask questions just to help us out and get some insight from you. We've got a slightly different one on there, and that is saying, this time around, and that's saying, hey, if you're okay with it, let us know. And we will, for anybody that said yes, we will share who you are, your email address, the JDE version, and if you're using Purge-it and what company you're for with the other people that said yes. This is not for us. This is not a marketing pitch or employee or anything. I've been a huge fan, proponent, and ambassador for Quest in the user community forever. This is just another opportunity to help the community extend itself. So you guys can have conversations amongst yourselves, reach out, get to know some other members of the community, two kind of questions you have. So if you're interested in that, say yes to that question, and we'll get that out to everybody. So other than that, we're done. A couple of minutes late. It's all your fault, Russ, as usual. But any other questions?
There were two other questions which came in, which I'll give you a quick summary of, and then just a couple of wrap-up points from me, I think. First question, can the F42 history files get loaded as part of the archive process? And yes, the F42019 and the F42119 get purged and archived as part of the standard Purge-it module.
Right.
And we mop up any potential orphans as well, where the header's gone across but the detail hasn't, or vice versa. So that's not a problem. And then there was another one. Hopefully I've answered it correctly. Do you assist in storing archived data? Example, archived in XE, now we're in 9.2. So we don't actually host any data. We're not a hosting solution, but if you have archived in XE, then as part of the upgrade process, then we'd install Purge-it into 9.2. We'd upgrade the archived data for you from XE format into 9.2 format. So then you've got it accessible in 9.2 as well. And this company that I was mentioning before with the XE database, 4 terabytes, 17 years of data, that's exactly what they're doing. So they're going to be trimming it down to 7 years. 5 years is going to go in the archive. That's going to be upgraded to 9.2, and then they'll keep 2 years plus current, which will then be they're using that in their test environment to then proof the upgrade to 9.2 based on that remaining 2 years in that system. So I think touching on a couple of points that you mentioned at the start, Mike, but really a lot of the benefits of Purge-it come from being built within the toolset, as you've seen, the single pane of glass, and people tend to go into an archiving project with one desire for a fix, like performance or space, and they tend to come out with many benefits of the project.
Yeah, categorically, we've seen that. They've got a backup window that is getting too small, and they come out of it with performance improvements, or they come out of it with, wow, we didn't realize our procurement process was so broken that showed up in all of the audit data, or we passed an audit, we were running into that, or we headed into the upgrade, and now we've got much cleaner data, and we can spin off our systems much easier. You're right. You start out with one need, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. We will reach out if you have any additional questions, what else we might be able to do. I'd encourage you, if you have not archived, let us do the data analysis and help you out from that side. Anything else that we can do to help you out or answer any questions? We're a pretty friendly bunch of folks, and we've been doing JD Edwards for a while, so we're part of your community. You want to copy the presentation deck? Cool. You want to link to the recording for yourself and others? Cool. You just want to get together and have a latte somewhere? I know a great local place that's got the best lattes. Oh, anyway, you'd have to come up to Winona for that. So anyway, thank you for your time. We hope this has been helpful. If you're an existing customer or want to find out a little bit more about the new stuff or have a conversation on that too, just let us know. Other than that, Russ, thanks as always for the time and for the laughs and for the fun on this. And I look forward to catching up with each of you afterwards. Let us know how we can help.